Welcome to the deep dive. You ever think about how just one word or phrase can totally change conversation?
Oh, absolutely. Especially in big public debates. It can completely steer how people even see the issue.
Exactly. Words mean things, right? And that's what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into the power of language, specifically looking at how we talk about legal consequences or sometimes the lack of them when it comes to negligence.
And we're focusing on one specific Florida law, right?
Yeah.
Statute 768.21, subsection 8.
That's the one. Our mission today is really to unpack why one advocate made a very conscious decision, a strategic move, really, to change the words they use.
And we're drawing this from a specific source.
Yeah, all our insights are coming from excerpts of a document called Why I Do Not Use the Term Freekill.pdf.
Okay, interesting title.
So let's set the scene a bit. The source introduces us to the founder of Legalized Negligence, an advocacy of one. And this advocate, their whole starting point is this strong belief that the words we pick, they have this huge impact, in court, in public discussions.
And using the wrong ones can really backfire.
Totally. They argue it can misrepresent what you're actually trying to say and just, well, stop your message cold.
It's not just about, sounding smart. It's about clarity and strategy.
Yeah.
Every word carries weight, doesn't it? It can either shed light on something or just muddy the waters. And this advocate's point seems to be, if your language isn't super precise, you might as well be talking to a wall. Especially when you're trying to push for legal change, that's a big problem.
That really clicks. So, okay, knowing that, this advocate used to use a term that sounds really intense, free kill. Very provocative.
It is.
So why stop using it if it's grabbing attention?
Well, yeah, and that's the fascinating part. Free kill was designed to hit hard emotionally. It definitely got people fired up, made headlines.
Okay.
But the source points out how the advocate saw it get dismantled pretty easily, actually, by lawyers, by lobbyists.
How? What was the counter?
It was deceptively simple. They just say, look, no doctor goes to work wanting to kill a patient.
Ah, I see. Shifting the focus.
Exactly. It wasn't about negligence anymore. Suddenly, it was all about the doctor's intent. Did they mean to kill? And that allowed opponents to paint the people asking for reform as, irrational, maybe anti-doctor.
So it completely derailed the actual legal point about negligence.
Completely. Linguistic judo, like the source implies.
Okay, so faced with that dismissal, how did the advocate pivot? Where did legalized negligence come from?
Right. So legalized negligence is the strategic response. It's designed specifically to pull the focus right back where the advocate wants it, on the legal consequences or the lack of them when negligence occurs.
So less about intent, more about outcome and the law.
Precisely. The advocate argues it accurately describes what's happening. Acts of negligence that normally would lead to full liability are, because of this specific law, shielded from certain kinds of financial consequences.
Specifically, Florida Statute 768.21, subsection 8.
Yes, that section limits the types of damages certain people can claim, especially those big non-economic ones like pain and suffering.
And the advocate is clear about who's responsible for this situation.
Very clear. The blame is placed squarely on the state legislature that passed the law and the governor back in 1990 who signed off on it. It's very targeted.
So if free kill risked getting bogged down in doctor's character, legalized negligence goes straight for the system. What does that shift do for the main issue here, which is accountability?
Well, that's the core of it. Free kill kind of walked into that trap, right? Making it about doctors' intentions. Legalized negligence cuts through that. It points directly at the loophole in accountability. It says, look, the law itself, by saying who can and can't sue for certain damages, effectively lets some negligent acts happen without the usual financial deterrent.
It sort of legalizes the outcome, in a way, by removing a consequence.
That's the argument. It's about systemic accountability, created by the law, not about whether an individual doctor had bad intentions.
Okay, so connecting this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the advocacy work itself, what's the strategic win with using legalized negligence? Why is it a better tool for them?
Well, strategically, it just makes it much harder for opponents to trot out that old line, doctors aren't trying to kill anyone.
Because the term isn't about killing.
Exactly. It forces the debate to stay focused on the impact of the negligence and whether the legal system provides adequate recourse. Is the remedy fair?
Right.
So it reframes the whole thing. It's not an attack on doctors. It's a question about justice and fairness within the law.
Which probably makes it easier for more people to get behind, doesn't it?
That seems to be the idea. People generally trust doctors, but they also believe in fairness and accountability when harm occurs. This framing speaks to that.
That makes a lot of sense. But there's another layer too, right? Because free kill could sound like, well, like the doctor gets off completely scot-free, no consequences at all.
Yeah, and that's a potential misunderstanding the advocate wants to avoid. It's not strictly true that there are no consequences possible.
Okay, so what can still happen?
Well, doctors might still face disciplinary action from medical boards, maybe lose their license, or in really rare extreme cases, even criminal charges. And sometimes, economic damages like covering medical bills or lost income can still be recovered.
So legalized negligence is more precise about what immunity is being granted.
Exactly. It points specifically to the legal shield against certain types of civil damages, mostly those non-economic ones, the pain and suffering, the loss of companionship. And crucially, it applies only to specific victims.
Like who?
Often it affects adult children whose parents die due to negligence, or single adults without spouses or minor children. Under this law, their ability to sue for those profound non-economic losses is severely limited or eliminated.
So it's a very specific legal protection we're talking about, not total impunity, and it impacts certain groups disproportionately.
Precisely. Much more accurate than free kill might imply.
And really, the advocate's hope here, as laid out in the source, is that explaining this helps you, the listener, see just how much language matters, how it shapes what we argue about.
This whole deep dive really shows the power of choosing your words carefully, especially when you're dealing with law and trying to advocate for change. Precision is key.
So just to wrap things up here, what we've really unpacked today is that huge strategic gap between free kill and legalized negligence.
Yeah, a difference in accuracy and strategic value and just in clarity, especially when talking about this specific Florida law, 768.21, subsection 8.
And the advocate's end goal, we learned from the source, is clear. They want to see that statute repealed.
That's the objective.
Which leaves us, and you, with something to think about. We just saw how one phrase can totally redirect a debate. So what other words or phrases floating around in public discussions might be doing the same thing, kind of obscuring the real issues without us even realizing it?
And maybe how could changing that language reshape those important conversations?
Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.